This may look like a pretty normal unibody MacBook on the front, and it is a normal unibody MacBook on the front. But let's turn it around because this has a custom retro Apple logo, and all without anything on the outside, just with some 30-year-old overhead projector transparencies. Now, before I actually get into how I accomplished this, let me address a common misconception about the glowing Apple logo on pre-2016 MacBooks. Because a lot of people think that it's a separate light, but it's not. It's just using the backlight of the LCD display, which shines both ways. And this actually makes way more sense because it's already very diffuse, and it would take up way more space to have a separate lighting element in the back behind the screen and the backlight. Now, it probably wouldn't be so possible with the modern day mini LED MacBooks. So I was thinking, there's probably already some kind of an extra diffuser as well because Apple. That means there's probably a little bit of extra space behind the screen. What would be stopping me from putting something colored behind there to make the Apple logo light up, say, pink? And that got me thinking, what else is the shape of an Apple logo? And that, of course, is the original Apple logo, or at least the one that came out right after the original one that they only used for about a year. The 1977 Apple logo, because it hasn't changed basically ever. It's still the same shape. But then I had to decide how I was going to add the color. Sure, I could have painted the logo from the inside, but that sounds annoying and would probably require masking tape and patience, which I kind of have. So that got me thinking to another thing. What if I could just print the logo? And then I had the answer. Overhead projector sheets are meant to be laser printed on. It's perfect. So, armed with this idea, I had to find some overhead projector sheets. And yeah, you can still buy these for some reason, but spending money on things is for losers. So, it was lucky that my mother found some. Thanks, Mom. And yes, this is actually 30 years old. I looked up the printer model that's printed on this box. It was released 30 years ago. Oh, and you know something else really funny about these? They were still in the shrink wrap inside this box until I opened it. There's still the original instruction manual for printing a transparency. This is kind of fun on its own, but that's beside the point. So from here, I just found an SVG and was able to design a few different variations of the original logo to have some extra spacing around the edges and make sure everything would work nicely. And then I had to wait until the color printer at work had its cyan cartridge replaced because I don't have a laser printer at home. That left me with some little transparent Apple logos. So now I could finally start on this assembly. I started off by removing all the screws to remove the bottom case. Then I could remove all the little tiny brackets and undo the cables going to the screen and the speaker, which is blocking the hinge. Over on the other side, same thing. I tried to remove the bottom case of the laptop, but the hinges did not want to turn by themselves, so I ended up having to grab them with forceps and move them manually so I could undo the laptop case. I then just started pulling on the screen with a suction cup and going around the edge with a pick to release the adhesive, which has already been mostly released. Someone's definitely been in here before for either a screen or front glass replacement, and it may not have been done so well. Once the screen was unscrewed, I was able to lift it out, and then after lots of fighting and prying, I was finally able to get the connector to undo. Next thing was to just pull up the diffuser, so I just kind of cut the adhesive around the edge of this. And this is showing just light coming through. And the logo by itself is pretty diffuse due to the paint that's on it.
From here, I just tried my transparency with just one in place to see what that would look like with a light going through. And I used my phone flashlight underneath it so I could see where the borders of the actual aluminum were to make sure everything was lined up correctly. And because the stripes were decently visible, I decided to go ahead and reassemble it and see what it looked like once I actually turned on the laptop.
And that left me with this. And it looks pretty decent, except for the fact that this picture is taken in an almost completely dark room. And if I took it anywhere even mildly brighter, it would just look white because the light is reflecting off the white paint on the back of the Apple logo. So it's time to open it up again.
So I completely disassembled the laptop and the screen again to have access to where I had put on my transparencies because I decided I had to remove the paint on the back of the Apple logo to get anything to show up. First thing was to scrape off all the tape that was holding things in place. And then from here, it was just a whole lot of scraping. This is about almost an hour here as a time lapse. It's a lot of scraping, and there it is. It's now clear. It's just a sheet of acrylic with no paint on it. I used a little bit of acetone to clean up the rest of the paint and put back on my transparencies. And now I flipped it over, and you can actually see the stripes again. While I'm back in here, though, I used the opportunity to flatten out a dent in the case from the inside, and it looks much better. I also cleaned the inside and outside of the glass because I had gotten it fairly fingerprinted, and then could reassemble everything. This is still in decently low light because otherwise the camera can't focus on it, but here it is!
So yeah, I think that this looks absolutely amazing. I'm so excited with how it turned out. I think it looks retro in a classy way, and it matches a couple of my other laptops that have rainbow Apple logos. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, maybe subscribe, or send this to someone who you think would also like it. I will see you next time, and for now, goodbye.